Hey everybody, I'm Aaron Shimmons, your host of Trail Talk, the global ultra trail show. This week, it's an in-person one. We got Benn Coubrough coming into my gaff in Sydney to talk about the Moab 240, what's led him to doing these distances, his history in the sport, his history as a runner, his debut at UTMB, which was pretty sharp. Ben has just left. It was a great conversation, so I think you're going to enjoy it. Before we get there, Tantrums, XMiles and GOREWEAR. These are the sponsors. Check them out. GOREWEAR, 30% discount. Use the code IRUNOVERMOUNTAINS30. Tantrums, best 6-litre packs in the game. Hands down. Look amazing. Very comfortable. Andy Glaze just wore one at the Javelina 100. So, what does that say? I don't know. It says that Andy Glaze wore one. And XMiles, global nutrition partner for Trail Talk. They ship worldwide with FedEx. Discount link in the description. They were the feed before the feed existed. That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, on to the pod with Ben. Benn Coubrough, welcome to Trail Talk, an in-person interview, which is a rarity. Normally maybe it's in Chamonix, maybe it's in the camper van, who knows, maybe it's at Western States, but this one is in Sydney.
Yes.
Because you live in Greater Sydney area. You've just come back from America, where you had an amazing run to second place at the Moab 240. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Welcome to Trail Talk. How are you feeling?
No, very good. Yeah, thank you for having me in your pad in Sydney. It's nice to be down in Sydney. It's only just about a 2-hour drive down from Newcastle. So, yeah, it was a nice day, nice drive.
And you're just back. Like, you literally just arrived back in Australia yesterday?
Yeah, 8 o'clock yesterday morning, flew into Sydney. So, we left San Fran at 11 o'clock on the Friday and then arrived Australian time Sunday morning.
And how's recovery been?
Yeah, not too bad. I suppose we're trying to make the most of the holiday being over the US. Never been to the US before, so a lot of walking and traveling around, but body feels pretty good. Just, I think I was saying before about my left foot still a bit numb. Still got pins and needles in my toes and stuff like that. But yeah, I suppose I went for my first real run yesterday afternoon and tested the legs out. But yeah, just ready to get going, I suppose.
How was the test run?
Oh, I felt a bit heavy, but again, I just trying to wake up my left foot.
Did it work?
No, not quite. Still a bit numb, but yeah, I'll start kicking into a bit more training this week.
Why don't we kick off the pod with just a little bit of introduction about yourself, like how long you've been in the sport, types of races that you're interested in, and anything else that really introduces you to the audience?
Well, I suppose got into more trail running probably 2018. And then just slowly started building up. Like I did UTA 50 was my first ultra marathon. Then basically just progressed into that UTA 100 in 2019. Done a few different, I've had a couple of good results in like podiums in like Great North Walk, Ultras, Alpine Challenge. Tried to do a lot of traveling around and doing different races. And then I just found as I was progressing through, the longer the races went, the better I went. More time on feet. So that's when I started to get into, the 100-mile distance. And that's when sparked the goal to do UTMB in, what was that, 23?
And that was your first overseas race,
yes.
Moab being your second, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important for context, because it's always good, like for the rest of world audience who don't know you, a good reckoner is, okay, well, what did he run UTMB in? Because that gives us a barometer of, I know the times that I ran.
Yeah.
And you ran 29 hours.
Yeah.
Which is a very solid time. First time in the Alps as well.
My goal going over was about 26, which I probably did lose about 3 hours on that first night going into Italy. I just had really bad altitude sickness and I was just barely moving for like 3 hours. So to get 29 hours, I was still stoked. And first time in the Alps, I haven't had great experiences with altitude. So that was, what happened. But otherwise, I was pretty stoked with that experience.
What year was that?
23.
Yeah, okay. So, and how long were you in Europe before the race?
Oh, well, we arrived the Monday. Yeah, we arrived the Monday and then raced the Friday. That's when on the Monday, or I think it might have been the Monday or Tuesday, we met up with Steve Devlin and Ricky and ran the last climb, La Flégère.
Okay.
And that was, first time meeting those boys. But
right. So you've met Ricky in person?
Yeah.
The legend of Ricky Wynn lives on.
And I'll claim this. I'm actually probably one of the only people that I'm taller than. So sorry, Ricky. But
Ricky's new name is Ricciardo Win Again. It's the first time mentioning that in the podcast, but that's his new. That's what I've renamed him to in my phone.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, it's been so good just for obviously meeting him. What, no, 2 years ago, and then to see how he's progressed. It's been a good watch.
Yeah, was that his CCC year? Maybe the year before.
Yes, no, he did CCC. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Cool.
Oh no, was it TDS? Oh no, it was CCC.
Yeah, TDS was 24.
Yeah.
So Moab was your second trip abroad.
Yes.
Why wait so long?
I don't know. I postponed my wedding from 23. We were going to Europe. I was supposed to get married that next month, but going to Europe, we ended up postponing the wedding. So we delayed the wedding by a year, and then I got married in 24, and then I think the big set for 24 was Coast to Cozzy, which was lucky enough that's a 240k race, which I won. And I think that had been marked for a year of basically to just focus on that and build in. And then the idea was to, this year to go back over to Europe or the US. I think I did plan on going to UTMB this year if I entered my stones. I had like 18, but I still didn't get in.
Still didn't get in?
So I thought, and that's...
It's getting harder.
Yeah, and that's what I was like. When then I had a few, after I won Coast to Cozzy, I had a few mates who like planting seeds like 200 miles in US, Moab or Bigfoot or something like that, and Cocodona. And then and that's when I didn't plan on going to UTMB. So then I put my name in the lottery for Moab in January, and then pulled out in February, and then that was it.
Right.
Head back to the US. And I mean, it's so like not sponsored or anything like that. So everything's, you got to pay for it yourself. So, and also once you go that far, you want to have a bit of a holiday afterwards as well. So, I suppose that just saving for the year to have a big trip, and then to have a result like second in Moab was awesome.
Like, did you go into it thinking that's possible?
Yeah, I did. I just doing research on, like, I just was looking at Max Joliffe pretty much for the whole year, just based on what he did to get into, like, same as Jeff Fellick as well, and just basically going over race plans and looking at paces and times. And I did go over there with a time of sub 70 hours, and
nailed it.
And that was the goal, was to all the pacing and everything was based on sub 70. So I did think that I had a good opportunity. I was a little bit worried about how I'll get affected by the altitude, just living at sea level and not having much exposure. Like, I just don't have time. I work full time, plus have a coaching business, so I can't just escape down to Jindabyne or Falls Creek or whatever every couple of weeks, or spend a week down there or something like that. So most of my training's local in Newcastle. I've got a couple of little climbs that are like 700 meters. There's one that can get you up 1,000 meters, which again still is about an hour and a half drive away. But yeah, just based on for 4 or 5 years of just building my running career and time on feet, I generally run about. This was the biggest build that I've ever done, and the most Ks I've ever done in a week. So it's running average probably about 180 Ks for the 10 weeks in the build. And then it's just sort of...
Let's give that some context, because whenever I think about Ricky's training and my training, I always keep him going because he hates getting beaten at anything.
Yeah.
But I might do more hours than him.
Yeah.
But he does more Ks than me because he's running them faster. So how many hours a week was that ramp?
It was roughly most weeks were about 18 to 20 hours, and that was probably including about 2 hours of strength training. I try and do two gym sessions a week as well. But yeah, roughly running was probably anywhere between 16 and 18 hours most weeks.
The strength training, is that something you do year round?
Yeah.
And does it change throughout the year?
Yeah, I normally do when I'm beginning a build, I'll do heavier stuff, and that'll just be more. It's all compound, like deadlift, squats, lunges, different variations. But Pretty much I'll do like I'll start doing a bit build up heavier earlier in the build, and then it'll get when it's the serious and the major block starts running, then I'll sort of back off a little bit of the heavier stuff, but I'll still do a whole routine of different exercises, which have just all different like activations, tendon loading, all that sort of stuff as well. Bit of plyo as well.
I think like the strength stuff is really important to do well in the 200s.
Yeah.
Whenever I did Bigfoot 200, I was training with a athlete at the time, and I was probably doing some sort of muscular endurance training twice a week.
Yeah.
And then maybe like 3 mobility and core things a week. And like, I never do that now.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
made me do it.
Yep.
And also the volume was touching on about 20 hours a week at its peak.
Yep.
But I just think like the strength thing is so important.
Yeah, I definitely
in that sort of duration.
Yeah, I'm a big component of strength training. Like I've been doing before I sort of got into running. I used to work and manage a gym when I was living in Sydney, and that was where that all started off from. Like I was playing football for 20 years as well. Was also doing gym work, but before I got into running, I did probably a good year of like a lot of heavy loading, lifting. Like my body was completely different, and then you start running, you get a little bit leaner, and your body changes. But I think that's like, especially like from UTMB, COSI last year, and now Moab, like the strength definitely has made the difference.
Yeah, it's just, I think a lot of runners struggle with it, me included, because it's not the thing that we're getting the joy from.
Yeah, it's the same. I'd prefer to be out running, but you just got to do it. But it does help because part of my coaching, I do have like program 2 strength sessions a week with everybody as well. So it does help.
Oh, if you didn't do it and you're prescribing it, you would look like a bit of a dick.
Exactly. So it does help where I have the Mondays and Wednesdays are the program strength sessions. So, and that's the thing too. Like, where do you put them in? And I normally put them in on my easier loading days. Like later in the week is when I do all my volume. Like my weeks, pretty much Monday to Thursday, are the same every week. That's 60 Ks and 2 strength sessions, and then that'll be like speed sessions, which is normally on the track or an oval, and then I'll do like on a heavier sort of longer sort of tempo session with some hills, and that's pretty much the same every week.
So I understand why you did UTMB. Because it's on everyone's bucket list. Why did you pick Moab out of all of the options?
I think I think there was an ingrained fascination with the race. I think when it first started, just watching YouTube videos. Like I think when I started to come across that 200-mile distance, it was like Jeff Brownlee, seeing his YouTube and watching him race, David Goggins, all his media and etc. when he did the race 2019, I think it was, and then Courtney. I think it was just sort of, there were so many times where I look back now after doing the race that there was lots of different triggers over the 6 years of watching the race, and I think it also, and speaking to like Ben, who was one of my pacers, like we're sitting back looking at the different races, and it is a race that suits me. It's a little bit hillier than, it's hillier than Tahoe. There's more elevation profile in Moab than Bigfoot. Cocodona's a faster sort of 200-miler as well. So I think there's just a lot of boxes that ticked the attributes that suit my running style, and that's where it sort of landed.
So what is your running style?
Good question. I'm a better climber. I'm not fast, so I've tried to work on my speed.
You have to be pretty fast. I've seen your results. Like you're in a phase of years where you're right at the front.
Yeah. I suppose I'm not a 2:30 marathoner.
Yeah,
I'm closer to that 3 hours.
Let's forget about that road stuff.
Yeah. No, but that's where I think just the hillier stuff generally does suit my forte as far as running. So even coast to COSI, it's not hilly, but it's a gradual climb the whole way. And like with the profile of Moab being just that up and down, especially that back end, like the what is it, 170 miles to 220 miles is the hilliest part of the race. That was, yeah, I think that just sort of suits my the pros of my running styles.
So you picked Moab. You figured it would lean into your strengths.
Mm.
You'd seen years of videos and all of these things on YouTube. How did the place and the route look in person?
Oh, yeah, everything that I imagined. Moab's a big shock, a big surprise as far as you look on the map, you zoom in and you just see one strip and canyons either side, and you think, oh well, it's just a little bit of a sleepy town, but there was a really good vibe in Moab. A very active town. Like, I'd speaking to a few people, they'd said they'd been there before and done like rock climbing and all that sort of stuff, and on the ATVs over the slip rock, etc.
Yeah.
But no, the town was really good. Like, lots of bars, lots of restaurants, very active people. Like, just monster trucks everywhere. The cars are so much bigger.
Oh yeah. Well, it must have been a real shock to the
yeah.
system, even going to America for the first time.
It was. Yeah, like just the roads. Like, I mean, we hired this car, which is a Jeep Wagoneer, which is top of the range, but it was like as big as a Ram, but it had a big, you could fit like 9 people in the car. So it worked out perfect. So we had 3 seats down the back, could still fit 6 people in the car, and just had plenty of space. But it was a bit of a shock. And going into the race, doing a lot of heat training, did a lot of sauna that last sort of 3 weeks before we went over, and then it's just miserable and raining. So that was a bit of a shock.
That's the worst weather I've seen at Moab.
Yeah, he's speaking to like the guy where we stayed at was it HTR Moab, and we had little cabins and stuff like that. But he was really awesome. But like he was saying, like I've never seen rain like this in Moab. Like, normally we have a day or so, but it's never stuck around for like a week ever before. So
yeah, thinking back to previous years, there's obviously the heat, there's the cold at night.
Yeah.
There's the times when there's been kind of mountain weather in the Shea Mountain section.
Yeah.
And the altitude obviously makes it colder. But this year it just felt like it was rain from start to finish.
Right. It was running, and I, like, at the start, I just sort of planted myself behind Brody and Killian, knowing that they were racing and that was where I needed to be. But like, we're running probably 5-minute pace for the first 5 to 8K, and I was just dripping with sweat. And I could hear the little group that we're in just all talking about the humidity and where they're all from like Colorado, etc., talking about all the beautiful mountains they get to train in and stuff like that. And then, but yeah, it was that first sort of 26K. I was really just conscious on making sure I kept my electrolytes up, because I knew I was already starting to cramp at around that sort of 30K mark, just because of the humidity and sweating so much. But
before we get into just breaking down the race, what were the things that you focused on? We talked about the strength.
Yep.
What about the running? Like, what was the running that you focused on leading into Moab? And also maybe reference, like, you had the experience of Coast to Cozy, which was a similar distance 1 year before. So what did you learn from that you applied to the Moab training?
Yep.
That you think worked?
Yeah, knowing that, well, my training for Coast to Cozy being a lot of road, but I wanted to also keep a lot of trail, and I just like to mix up the road and the trail. So I kept that element in, knowing that there was a lot of road and runnable sections in Moab. A lot of my building up for, basically I sort of added an extra hour onto my long runs as I built up. So where Coast to Cozy I was probably doing 30 to 40K, two weeks or 2 runs a week were around that 30 to 40K, whether it be Sunday would be 40, Friday would be 40. For Moab, it was pretty much 50 to 60. So just adding that little bit more time on feet, but a lot of the routes that I did for Coast to Cozy were the same. So a lot of I was still getting about about 4,000 meters of climbing every week with about that 180K. And just, I suppose what I added in was just more time on feet, a lot of running, but still keeping those, the climbing in as well, and doing a lot of repeats on like longer sort of climbs. So anywhere from like 5K, 10K hills sort of thing, and just kept building from that. But I don't try and complicate things, and also just what time permission. I just focus on what I can do. and just keeping it most efficient. As far as my Fridays and Sundays were the most important days of the week, and that was where I was getting the 50 to 60k runs in. But again, keep focused on that element of aiming for around that 4,000 meters of climbing plus anywhere from 170 to 200Ks.
So were you doing those long runs back-to-back days, or was there a day between
Friday,
them?
Sunday, yeah.
Friday, Sunday?
Yeah.
So what would you do on Saturday?
I worked Saturday, so I pretty much organised Friday to have Friday off so that I could get my long runs in. So Monday to Thursday, then work Saturday. So my 2 running days, my days off, were Fridays and Sundays. So Saturdays were just like I would normally work from 9 to 4 at the store, and I'd like get a 30-minute treadmill run in the morning and a 30-minute treadmill in the afternoon after work, or anywhere between 60 to an hour. So my running on the Saturday would be anywhere from 60 minutes to 90 minutes.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a real emphasis on the key runs,
Yeah.
and the other stuff, the other days are just getting some movement in.
That's pretty much right, yeah.
You know, a treadmill run,
Yep.
an easy 60 minutes,
Yep.
90 minutes, or this
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So were you doing once, twice? How many times a week were you doing like intensity?
Probably twice a week. Right, depending on how I was feeling on the Friday or the Sunday, I would pick up the pace a little bit on that run. So like I might start off a little bit easy, or there'll be like in the routes that I selected and picked, there'll be sections on that where it would be within that 60k, there'll be a 30k loop that I'll add more intensity and more of a tempo, or I'd push harder on the hills and then cruise the flat sections, that sort of stuff. So depending on the week, there would be different emphasis on whatever route I was doing, and where it would be, will it be pushing the hills or pushing the whole entire 30k circuit or 20k circuit, that sort of thing. Tuesdays was an intensity, was like a speed session based on the track, and that would be anywhere from mile reps, K reps, 800 meter reps, fartleks, that sort of stuff. And that was basically built in with while I'm coaching. So I would coach Tuesday morning, I'll just jog with the group, and then on the Tuesday night would be the session that I'll do with the group. So I'll never do the full session, but I'll sort of pace different people so that I can still get a bit of a workout. And then the Thursdays I coach in the morning and the night as well on the trails, and that's generally like a hilly tempo circuit, might be anywhere from a K to 2K length. And I'll sort of on that in the afternoon session again, I'll sort of push some of the loops with that. So Tuesdays and Thursdays I'll get a bit of intensity, and then and then Friday, Sunday, depending on how I felt in the different routes and different routes.
Doing a 60k long run. How long are we talking here? 7, 8 hours?
No, 5.5. About 5.5 hours.
That's tidy.
Yeah, so I'd still try and keep the longer runs at a decent click, and not try and
See, that's why it's important for us to bring this back to time.
Yeah.
Because someone hearing 60k run,
Yeah.
I'll do a 60k run in my build up next year.
Yeah.
You know, for Moab. But really, I think if a 60k run is taking somebody 9 hours,
yeah,
they're running too long.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Or like 5, you're talking 5, 6.
Yeah.
Which is perfect long run territory.
Yeah. That's that fine line of, and it's also what time that I've got as well. Like if I'm running, I'd normally on the build on that Friday, I'd normally only have a 6-hour period where I could actually get my running in, because then in the afternoon I was coaching little kids that I take for a session in the afternoon, and then you've got to fit in time with the wife. So take her to the pub for a pint and some food, and the same thing for Sundays. Like Sunday is like our lunch date, so making sure I'm still home at a lunchtime to take her out for lunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So well, behind every committed ultra runner is a committed and supportive partner.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I'm very lucky. Like, getting married and postponing the wedding for a year to go to Europe for UTMB. But yeah, just the support that I had, knowing that that's like it's not really a question of can I go to Moab or anything. I'll start talking about it, and then she'd just roll with it, and then
When are we going?
yeah, exactly. Well, if you're going to Moab, we're going to Nashville, so that was the whole thing, to take her to Nashville for a week so she could see country music and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff and experience that, embrace that. But no, she was yeah, I wouldn't be able to do what I can do if it wasn't for her. And like, well, she's got 2 kids as well, so a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old, and so she needs to be there for them as well. And we have a fairly good relationship. I have a good relationship with the kids as well, so that's it's good. Wasn't a fan of being left behind, not going to the US, but you can't really take them on it. There's no way they would be able to handle a week or 2 weeks in Moab,
Yeah.
not having no internet and just sitting in a car or a caravan or whatever.
So you had 3 crew in total, is that right?
There was five of us. So I had Mitch, Tristan, Ben, Brooklyn, and my wife Nicole. So it was 5 of us.
And everyone travelled from Australia?
Yeah. Oh, well, my cousin now lives in London, so he flew from London, and Mitch and Tristan were. I'm just so lucky that I didn't have to ask. They just volunteered and put their hands up. I'm coming.
Mm-hmm.
So like Mitch and Tristan, as soon as I found out I was going to Moab, they were like, "Well, I'm coming." And like my Tristan, I remember him ringing. He goes, "Oh, before I buy my ticket, you're actually going over to race and not just tick a box." And I said, "No, I'm going over to race." And he goes, "All right, well, I'm coming." So and then I was a little bit worried. Well, Nicole, my wife, was a little bit worried, knowing that she wasn't going to be able to do any pacing, and only having Mitch and Tristan. Tristan's only just getting, and it's only been running pretty much 6 months, and Mitch isn't he's not as fast as me, but
But is he as fast as you with 200 miles in your legs?
well, he did all right. He did all right. He did all right for the first. He paced. What did he pace? About 130k of it. So
there you go.
so he did all right. But we're getting a little bit worried. And behind my back, not behind my back, but my wife had spoke to one of my mates, Brett, and it's like, "Oh, I'm getting a bit worried. Do you reckon you could speak to your wife and you reckon you could come over?" But in that time, I'd already we're out for drinks somewhere and was speaking to Ben, and Brooklyn actually paced me for Coast to Aussie. And we're sort of talking about the race, and he's like, "Well, can I come?" I'm like, so that's sort of solved that problem. Ben's probably was the most important part of the whole race and crew support. He knows me very well, knows what pushes me, knows what drives me. And yeah, I suppose when we get into the race, we can talk more about his impact. And then he was like, "Oh, can I bring his Brooklyn? His son's 17, so he's like, "Oh, can I bring Brooklyn?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, why not?" So it was a great experience for him to be a part of the race as well. But yeah, I was very lucky to have 5 people that travelled all the way over to Moab just for my race.
So how important do you think it was having pacers and crew? Because you can just do the 200 milers with the drop bags.
Yeah. I think it definitely, I definitely wouldn't, it'd be hard to say, having what I had, it'd be hard to say if I would have got the result without the crew, but I think, yeah, definitely it was so important, especially in that middle section, having someone to just keep on you, because after 40, well, I was probably at the stage, it was about 35 hours into the race. It's so hard to mentally just keep wanting to push yourself. And there's everything that you're tiring. And just to have someone just always, just that one step ahead of you, just kept pushing, going leg turnover, use your glutes, keep pushing, hike, run the flat, because there's so many times where there might just be that slight gradient where you just want to walk, but they're there to push you and get every little ounce of energy out of you. So I think, yeah, definitely wouldn't have got second definitely wouldn't have, the way third place was coming up, I definitely don't know if I would be able to hold on without that extra push. But yeah, I think, and plus my nutrition plan was all Tailwind as well. So I was very lucky. Tailwind, they supplied me with all my fuel that I needed. So we had a bit of a mix up. I arrived, there was someone supposed to meet me at Moab, but then last minute they ended up posting it, and then found out that I wasn't going to arrive until Saturday, and obviously the race starts on Friday. So we had a lady from Tailwind that drove 2.5 hours on the Thursday night, arrived at 9 o'clock on Thursday night, so I could get my fuel, do my drop bags, and everything like that. So I had a bit of a close call on not having fuel, but my whole nutrition plan was pretty much about 170 odd scoops of tailwind for the whole race.
Shout out to Tailwind for saving the day
Yeah,
there.
they were, and her name was Jenny. So thank you, Jenny, for driving from Denver to Moab on the Thursday night just so I could get my fuel.
And you trained using Tailwind, yeah?
Yeah. So I normally train about for those 50 to 60K runs. I was pretty much doing about 75 to 80 grams of carbs an hour. So I was having I'd go pretty much 2.5 to 3 scoops of tailwind per 500 ml bottle. And then so I was also using the high carb as well. So I started using that probably about halfway into the build for Moab. I didn't use the high carb as much during the race, just the way it worked out with the sachets. But yeah, pretty much all my long runs, I wouldn't have any solids. It'd just be all tailwind. And yeah, the race, all I had 2 pepperoni pizzas, no cheese, a hamburger, and an egg and bacon wrap. That was it for the 68 hours.
Before we started recording, we went and got a couple of coffees, and you got an almond milk.
And yeah, so
were
dairy,
you don't take dairy?
No, I try and avoid. I can handle some of it. Milk definitely not. Cheese I can get away with, but just being in the race, I didn't want to risk anything, so I just got a pepperoni pizza with no cheese.
Is a pizza even a pizza without cheese?
Yeah, well, no, it's not. It's not really. I don't generally will have cheese, but I just didn't want to risk anything with the race, so just kept it plain and simple. But yeah, dairy does, especially milk, does play up with me a little bit.
Right. So your plan going into the race was drink mix the whole way?
Yeah.
And then just
whenever I planned to stop for a little bit longer, that's when I'd get something solid. So like my first sleep was at road 46. And that was just a 20-minute nap. So
many hours into the race?
That was about 35, I think. So I think road 46, I think, is about 100 and might have been 100 and what are we? It might have been about 140 miles into the race, and then that was just 20 minutes. So before that, I sat down and had a pepperoni pizza, and I also had a bottle of the Tailwind Recovery just to get more protein in, and then basically sat in the car, or laid in the car in the front seat, and just closed my eyes 20 minutes, and then was out, and then
just sitting up.
Yeah, I was sitting back a little bit. I was sitting back a little bit with a blanket. It got really cold.
Premium economy.
Yeah, pretty much. And but I was I had, for some reason I was trying as I got in the car, I closed my eyes and I had this Asian man yelling in my head to sleep. I don't know why, but it just had this Asian guy yelling in my head. I'm like, how am I going to get to sleep? And then
can we even consider that a hallucination?
I think, well, after that I started hallucinating. So that next leg, when I was starting when Tristan started pacing, that's when I started hallucinating. I'm like running along. It was the whole, because you're in so many canyons and mountains and whatever, I hadn't seen a sunrise or a sunset the whole race. Because of all the rain, all the cloud cover, and in the canyons, you just didn't see the sun come up, didn't see the sun go down. And this was going into the start of the last day. And yeah, we were just waiting for this sunrise.
And you were aware of this? Or like, I haven't seen this yet?
Yeah. I was like speaking to Tristan, and he's like, oh, because had a couple of aides saying, oh, you get to see the sunrise. It's really nice over this area, but didn't see it. And then but I had that 20-minute nap, and then we ran from, so was that, oh no, that wasn't that was before road 46. It was at Dry Valley. Dry Valley is when I had the first sleep, and that was 20 minutes. And then we went to the Needles, which was about a 26K road section, and then you ran another 28Ks, or no, another 30 odd K to road 46. But on the way to road 46, we were waiting for the sun to come up, and I was running along, and I could see the bush, and then I'm like looking at 4 gorillas sitting all bunched up. I'm like, that's a bush, but why am I seeing gorillas? And then running along looking at the rocks, and there's faces on the rocks, and then I'm seeing like a toy jet plane and a toy army tank all on the side of the road, just looking. And I stopped at a rock, and Tristan's like, what are you doing? And I'm like trying to look to see if what I'm looking at is real. And I was like, that's not a flower, it's a rock. And he goes, what are you talking about? And then eventually I was really starting to struggle. It was just because it was just on a long road, and all you could see was this road just going up and down for the next sort of 5K. And I was really starting to struggle. It was really cold. Didn't realize how cold it was. But it was snowing in the mountains where we were heading, so that's why the temperature had dropped.
Right.
And then, and I just knew that I had 6K to get to the road 46, and then the sun finally appeared, and it just sort of, the sun broke out of the cloud, and it was like I just had this next breath of life. Just woke up, the sun hit my face, and then I was awake and kicked on through road 46. But yeah, there was a few hard moments.
Circadian rhythm reset when you saw the sun.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's, then got to road 46, and that's when I had the second nap.
Touching back on the nutrition thing, it was tailwind was the plan,
Yep.
and solid foods. What were the requests going out to the crew for the various stops? Like, were you able to text during the race, or were your pacers able to text?
I could have, but they could have texted. I didn't pull my phone. The only time I pulled my phone out was at Dry Valley to get my phone charged, but my phone sat in my front pocket and I didn't take it out at all. I was like, especially early on, I wanted to take my phone out and take I just could have stopped every 2 minutes to take a photo, but my phone didn't leave. And I keep it pretty simple. Like, as far as the nutrition plan was, basically, I think in the couple of drop bags would have like three bags of caffeinated, 2 bags of non-caffeinated, and they're all basically 2.5 scoops, and there'll be 1 high carb or something like that in that. But I think the only communication to the crew from my pacers as far as nutrition was if I wanted an extra caffeinated one or something like that. But it was all pretty much the same. Every from Indian Creek to the island to Badgers to Bridger Jack was all pretty much the same. Just 5 bags of tailwind for the 5 bottles of tailwind that I had.
Right.
And I didn't run with a bladder. I just had 2 soft flasks at the front, 2 soft flasks at the back, and I'd have 1 or 2 handhelds on me. So I'd have 1 handheld at the back, and then I was holding one handheld. And one would have one would have tailwind and one would have water, or I'd have both water. And that sort of just didn't change.
So you had the pepperoni pizza.
Yeah.
I'm interested in maybe digging into a little bit on the nutrition, because the best plans are hard to keep.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you don't know what you're going to be craving until you crave it.
Yeah.
And the thought of going in and running the guts of 70 hours on tailwind or any drink mix.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard one to get my head around.
Yeah.
But also, this was a super wet race.
Yeah.
And you were tying your hydration and fueling into the one thing.
Yeah.
So, like, whenever you were training here, there wasn't many rainy days.
No.
So, like, was there no changes based on like the weather or?
The only change that I did early on in that first sort of probably 110K, because it was humid. That first day was so humid. I did have some precision hydration. Precision hydration tubes and some Cliff Blocks, just to get some extra sodium and just to have something solid and change it up. I didn't really have too many Cliff Blocks or precision gels after probably after about 160 miles. But especially that first sort of 100K, I was taking in those just those chews just to get that extra sodium, because having the hydration with having the water, having the tailwind, and sweating a lot more with the humidity, I did have those extra. That's what I was sort of my backup to make sure that I got more electrolytes in.
Don't know what that's. But were you not like sending out those messages of, I really want a McDonald's? Can I have 5 Big Macs and 2 large fries?
No, I think that's just how I sort of work. My once I sort of set my mind to something or focus on something, that's what I do. I didn't really, the only time, but later in the race I got a little bit hungry, but that was pretty much just when we got to the checkpoint, when I sat down, I just grabbed the pepperoni pizza or something like that. But no, I pretty much was just, I knew what I had set, and there was, okay, it's working. So if it wasn't working, if like when I did Coast to Cozzy, I had one mix up with my nutrition. There's one section where it's a 10K climb and it was like 35 degrees and I didn't take any water with me. I just had 4 bottles of Tailwind and they all had 3 scoops of Tailwind in it, and I sculled in an hour 4 bottles of Tailwind. So I had like, 150 grams of carb or 180 grams of carbs in an hour, and got to the top. And I looked like I was pregnant. So I knew you've got to experience these
It's a
things.
lot of
So,
salt as
yeah,
well.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, so I basically then for that next sort of, probably for about 60K, I didn't touch any Tailwind. I was just drinking water and Coke just so I could get my stomach settled. So I was aware of those sort of things. But once I had my mind set to it, I was just, okay, that's what I'm doing. The other thing I did do, just to avoid cramping and stuff, was I take the Hammer Nutrition anti-fatigue tabs, which I can thank Steve Devlin for getting me onto those years ago before going to Europe.
What's in them?
It's just magnesium and potassium. So it's just basically, it's just a muscle fatigue. So you prevent your muscles from fatiguing. So just replacing the loss of potassium and magnesium into your muscles, then that obviously helps the blood flow and the circulation and keeps your muscles firing. So anytime.
So you're not going to get that from a regular electrolyte sachet?
You do. But this is just something extra. So I was pretty much within, you'd generally have 1 or 2 tablets an hour. So in that first sort of,
That's a lot.
yeah. So that first sort of 100K, I was definitely probably having 2 tablets an hour. It backed off a little bit later in the race just because it was, there wasn't as humid and just different parts of the race. But anytime I sort of felt like a cramp coming on, I made sure I had 2 tabs just to keep on top of that. Like, I mean, people use Cram Fix and stuff like that, but again, that's just more of a neurological, just a reset. But this actually just replaces that magnesium and potassium. So that was another important point.
So you had the head down. You were in race mode.
Yep.
And that kind of kept you just taking the tailwind.
Yeah.
What about Coke?
Oh yeah, I did have some Coke.
The fuel of the ultra fuel of the gods.
I did have, so pretty much from Indian Creek, the first crew point, pretty much every aid station, every 20, 30 miles, I'd have a bottle of Coke. So I sculled a bottle of Coke. I had a couple of Red Bulls. I did make an error leaving Dry Valley. I think, yeah, Dry Valley. After I woke up, I sculled a bottle of Coke and a can of Red Bull, and that went straight through me. So that was a bit of an error running along the road. And I'm just like, my gut was starting to get that bloated feeling, and that was the one mistake that I made. But yeah, pretty much Coke was every sort of major checkpoint.
Let's talk about how the race unfolded. Like, you went off. You mentioned earlier, you knew who the competition was.
Yeah. Yep.
What was the mindset? How did you break up that race? What was your strategy for the race, and how did it kind of play out as the race unfolded?
As I mentioned, just planted myself right behind Killian and Brody. I knew they were racing. I heard their talks on different feeds and stuff, and etc. So yeah, for that first 5 to 10K, you pretty much did like almost 10K before you went into the trail. So there was about a group of 10 of us in that pack. There was one Costa Rican guy that took off up the hill, and then we found him halfway up the hill breathing to the side. But anyway,
sounds like Harry from Cocodona.
Yeah,
50K PR.
Yeah. But so it was just keeping relaxed. Like I was for the first 10K, we're pretty much running between 5 and 5:30 pace, which felt fine. But again, I was conscious that the dehydration and the sweating. And then when you get into the first section, when you get into the Massa, Hidden Valley, go through that checkpoint, I had enough fuel on. I made sure I had enough fuel on me to run through that first checkpoint. But that coming just before we got to Hidden Valley, what's his name? Eli had his poles out, and he was the only one running with his poles, and there was a group of 10 of us, but he started to move a little bit slow, and he was right in the middle of the pack, and I was sitting at about 8th, 9th spot. So that's when Killian and Brody and a few others got away. So there was about a 200-meter gap. So because it was single track, I couldn't get around. So by the time I sort of got past Eli to try and catch back up, they were probably about 400 or 500 meters ahead. So I think when we got to the second checkpoint, I was running for the probably 8K going into the second checkpoint. I was running by myself, and I could see I think Killian and that they came in maybe 2 minutes before me at that leaving that aid station. And then I was just like trying to keep comfortable. I was watching. There was a few people that I sort of caught up with, and I was just watching them. I could just see on the hills they were just spending too much energy, and it was about probably 50, 60K where I started to use my poles. There was a long section, just a long straight section with a lot of up and downs, but it was just because it was up and down and it was sort of on that thick sort of sand. So the whole point for me now was to make sure just offload my legs as much as I could. And I just planned myself, which I thought I was in 8th, 7th spot, but I was actually in 2nd and 3rd. And there was just another guy that he'd run the course, well, he had recce'd the course, so he sort of knew the line. So I was just sticking with him, running with him for a while, just sort of. But again, he was starting to run. He was running low, even the hills he was running, and that's when I'd hike. And by the time we got to about 80K, his legs had blown up and fell away. And that's when I was basically from probably 80K, I was running by myself. And then that was just that first sort of, until I got to my pacer, was just about running conservatively and making sure that I wasn't working too hard. And that was the mindset for at least that first 100K.
Do you normally train by heart rate or by RPE?
I just RPE. I just go. I in my training, I look at my heart rate and I get a bit of a. But I wasn't wearing a chorus.
You look
bicep.
during or after?
During. Oh, both. I use my heart rate as a guide to sort of see what the perceived effort is telling me, and then I can sort of get a gauge from there. But during a race, I barely look at my heart rate. I just more focus on perceived effort and going by feeling. And because I do that a lot in my training, it's sort of
you need to do it in training for it to be second nature in the race.
Exactly, and I've been doing that for such a long time. Even when I used to do triathlon back in the day, I was the same sort of thing, just using as just perceived effort. And yeah, that's all I basically focused on until I picked up my pacer.
So what would you say the perceived effort was on day one?
Oh, I'd say probably
or what was the flex?
What
was the range?
I'd say between a 5 and a 7.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That seems quite high.
Yeah, it was sort of.
I would say like a 5 and a 7 is it miler territory even?
Yeah, the first sort of section, it was a little bit just looking at where I was in the field. But generally, it did sort of probably after about 80K to 100K, it sort of got down to probably about 5. But there was some sections where I was sort of just pushing a little bit, just so I was either pulling away or making ground on those first couple of runners. But then once I sort of got into space, I just settled.
How do you think, like, the fact that the two up front gapped you?
Yeah.
Do you think that slowed you down because there was that gap? Like, do you think, I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you think your ultimate finish time would have been faster if you had been closer to them?
Probably a little bit, yeah. I think that, especially that first probably 100 miles, if I had them in my side a little bit more, I probably would have been a little bit faster. But in saying that, because I am so conscious of my perceived effort, I just sort of generally, most of the time, nearly every race I do, I generally start running by myself, because I just sit into what feels good for me, and don't get caught up on chasing or trying to do what everyone else is doing. Even like when I was in that first sort of section, or when there was a couple of runners around me, I wasn't just running the hill because they were running the hill. I was looking at, okay, well, what are they doing to what I was doing that was just going to work better for me?
Okay. And you were saying, like, that first day it was maybe 3 or 5 to 7.
Yeah. Yep.
And then after that, it maybe wasn't flexing as high?
No, I was pretty much closer to that, like anywhere between 3 and 5. And that next section from 100K to the 100 sort of miler, it was where on paper it was meant to be fast. It was slow because of the rain, just so much mud and clay. So you're like trying to run up the hill and you're just sliding and slipping, and traction just wasn't there. And it's nothing that what I'm used to running in Australia, but it was just made the section really slow. And
what were the times like this year in comparison? I haven't double checked that.
As far as finish times, well, I still finished fast. I still broke the course record finishing second. Third,
Even in those muddy conditions?
yeah.
And you're probably carrying a kilo of mud at times.
Yeah, there was some sections where you were losing too much time trying to stop and get, because you just had like your feet were just like, it was like having cement on your feet, and you were trying to like kick it off on rocks and etc. But you were just losing too much time because there was just so many sections just covered in mud. And then you had the I think where they marked the course out, there wasn't a river, but with all the rain, a river had formed. So we were trying to follow in this line, and we crossed over this little creek maybe 10 times before we actually got off onto the trail. And we were like zigzagging. I was running through cactus and saying, why is the course sending us this way? But it was actually, you just run straight down this creek bed, but there was actually water where normally they don't have water there because of the rain. And then I was like, because I was through in second spot, the runners that were behind me, they were running in, sometimes it was up to their knees, where I only had it at ankle deep. So we were just sort of zigzagging for that section, working out, trying to find the line. Why are they sending us this way and that way? But it was just because of the water build up.
With the destination trail races, I remember at kit check, they used to check to make sure that you had Gaia app and the GPX loaded into Gaia.
Yep, they did that.
And also, you're not using it to navigate, but it's actually very good if you get off course to get back onto it.
Pretty much.
And then you're using your watch?
Pretty much for most of the race, I had it on my watch set on the map. And I was just
what are you on? Is it Sunto?
Sunto race, yeah. So I just had it I just had that zoomed in so I could see, because the course markings weren't great. There was a few turns that weren't even marked. You just sort of like, they'd either fallen over or they'll sort of put on a weird corner, etc. But you really needed to watch your watch. I was paranoid about getting lost, and I was lucky. When I had a pacer, it was worked out pretty well as well, because they were able to get it before I did. So
did you have any major screw ups in terms of that?
No, there was one section. I think I probably ran about 200-300 meters, which sort of, it was like a fork, and I followed one wrong line and wasn't looking at my watch and realized and had to run back. But probably 2 times I ran probably an extra 300-400 meters off course, and then realized and went back. So no real major hiccups. There could have been one major one, which was you got to like a T-junction and there was no signs whatsoever. So you could have just gone straight. And if it had have gone straight, God knows what would have happened. But looked at the watch and realized that you turned left. But that was that was a crucial point, I think.
So pick back up the race on day 2.
Yeah.
How was it developing? What were you hearing about let's say Killian up front and your own pace? Like, were you getting splits? Were you even thinking about it?
Yeah, I got a couple of splits. So I was more looking at what was at that stage. I'd pretty much just focus on what was going to be best for me. I was getting sort of updates on where Killian was, and at that stage he was 4 miles ahead or 3 miles ahead, etc. So I wasn't really worried. Generally, when I came in on that day 2, generally by the time I came into the checkpoint and when I was about to leave, third or fourth would generally come in. So I sort of knew I was always around that sort of 20, 30, 40 minutes ahead of them every time I left the checkpoint. When we came in on that second day and I got to Indian Creek, coming in, sorry, not Indian Creek, I don't even remember which one it was, but I started to have pain in my shin. And I've had that experience once years ago when I did I attempted to do the G&W, which is from Newcastle to Sydney. It's like 250k, and I had a issue where I had to pull out of doing it. I got to 20k to go, and my right shin had loaded up. Then when I went, I thought I was going to snap my leg. But so I started to feel that same thing, which I'm like asking the medic, I'm like, have you got a pin? I want to pop my leg, because it was like dry needling and just pop to get the blood. I felt like it was just loading up and I wasn't getting blood flow in my shin. So and they're like, ladies looking at me going, no, you don't we don't do that. I've got a blade.
Who's this Aussie bloke looking to pin himself here?
I've got a blade, but I'm not going to slice your leg. So
our science has moved on from those dark days.
So, but yeah, because of my, and then that was a bit of a worry for my feet, because just being wet for at that stage for 20 hours, I was starting to get some blisters on my feet. So we stripped off my shoes, cleaned my feet, and that's when the one of the physios, she just gave me a bit of a deep tissue massage in my shin, which released it a lot. She was telling me that I was got the most inflexible feet that she's ever seen, which is common trend for me.
That was that Moab specific or just in general?
Oh, just in general.
Okay.
Like my physios and that I've seen, and osteos, and even getting a massage, they're like always telling me to relax, and I just don't know how to relax. I don't switch off. So yeah,
your tendons are sprung so tight.
Yes, pretty much. So she was she did some work that eased up, but my feet were getting a bit of a worry, just because I had on my second toe and on my big toe on my right foot, I was starting to get some calluses and some blisters, but put on a fresh new pair of shoes and socks, body glided my feet, and got going. By the next day, my feet had come good. But I remember my wife telling me after the race that second day, after the second day, when she saw my feet, she was like, she actually got really upset and was crying, rang her friends back home saying his feet are really bad. If he doesn't have his feet, he's not going to be able to run, and she was concerned. But thankfully, just getting onto it straight away, and the rain sort of stopped at that period as well, gave time for my feet just to recover, and then I didn't have an issue with any blisters after that.
The one thing that's interesting about tracking and following a 200 miler, and it's the same in racing it, is it doesn't matter if somebody's 2 hours ahead, 5 miles ahead, whatever. It's how much have they slept?
Yeah.
Somebody could be 2 hours ahead and they haven't slept, and somebody could be, in second place and they've banked 20 minutes or an hour. It's so important.
Yeah.
So were you getting like sleep updates?
Yeah, when I left one point, third place had come in. I think he basically, what's his name? I think it was Michael. I don't know where he finished, but he was, there was a bit of banter going on with the crews, because I was saying they've got the 18 paces and stuff like that. But he came, I think he said it for my ears only, was, I'm going to have 2.5 hours sleep. And I'm like, I don't think he's going to be having a 2.5 hour nap this early into the race. So there was a bit of...
2.5's a bit excessive.
Yeah. So I knew that was for my ears only. But then, after that, I think the crew...
the crews are even playing race games here, aren't they?
Yeah, the crew gave me a bit of update on, like, if I'd left... If I'd left, I think they'd the next checkpoint, I'd say, oh well, he only stayed for 20 minutes. Or the crew would text my pacer and say, oh, they've only left, or you've got like you're 4 miles ahead. And that's when the pacers came, especially once we got into Deshay Mountain. And Benn, that's where I was talking about how important Benn was. Going into Shea Mountain, he was always going to push me on the hilly sections. So he had the hardest sections of the race. That's where he paced me, and he was like, "All right, well, you got a 4 mile lead. We want to pick this up. We want to increase the lead in this section. This is where you're going to be the strongest. This is where you need to push." So he knows how to drive me, so he got all the energy. We knew said, okay, well, if you want to extend your lead, this is what you got to do. Was always just telling me to, switch on my glutes. Keep, like, he'd always, because we train a lot together, and we don't like if we're doing a long run and we're on a hill, I won't stop because he's not stopping. He won't stop because I'm not stopping. So we use that for that race. So he'll get like 10, 20 meters ahead, and then I'll just try and catch him, and then he'll push a little bit further. So then I'll go a little bit harder, and
he'll keep you within like elasticated
pretty much
distance.
And because he knows me, he always knew that he wasn't burning me or pushing me too hard. He just knew how much he could he could get out of me. So we did that Shea Mountain section to Monticello Lake, and I increased my lead on that section, and that's when the rain hit again. And then it started, once we got up to the Shea Mountain, on top of Shea Mountain, it got really cold. So yeah, that's when jumpers and that came on, and then the rain started and it pissed down. So that next section from Monticello Lake down to Dry Valley, I got really tired and I wanted to sleep at Monticello Lake, but it wasn't a crude section because they changed it this year. It used to be a crude section, but because of the weather, they changed. If you had crew at Shea Mountain, you couldn't have crew at Monticello Lake, and they did like a lottery for that. So half the field went one way, half the field went the other way. So I didn't have crew at Monticello Lake, so if I did want to sleep, I would have to sleep in a bunk.
No, they never work.
No. So once I sort of realized that, I just had some Coke and just a small tailwind, caffeinated tailwind, and then we kicked through. But at that stage, it had started pissing down. But my legs going into Shea Mountain, I was really starting to struggle. And then after just having Ben, just getting my legs going, my legs were regenerated and I was able to run a lot of the hills and especially the flats, and then got a good cadence going back onto the road. But then when it started pissing down, that's when the clay came in. And that...
Before we get to that,
Yeah.
you mentioned about he would, was it Ben?
Yeah, yeah.
Would tell you to, switch on your glutes?
Yeah, yeah.
How are you switching on your glutes?
Yeah.
What's like the trick here for switching your glutes on mid-race?
Just especially with the poles, just sort of using the poles and make sure you're pushing off. And like going over to the race, my osteo said, that was actually one of the last things he said to me after my last treatment. He said, "You've got the biggest glutes I've ever seen on a runner. Use them." Because if you're like, I suppose you've got to mix if you're using your quads, you've got to use your glutes. So mixing it up. And I think if I don't focus on switching on my glutes, then I can overload my quads. And that was where that first I realized that after about 100 miles, I'd been using hadn't been using my glutes enough. So that's when it was really good that Ben came on, because he just that was that trigger that sort of, well, hang on, I've got to start using my glutes more.
And how are you doing that?
It's just a different tensing. Just with when I'm on the poles, just more like that's just
driving into the heel more.
Focus that drive onto the heel and push, and just that push off to make sure that I'm not just using my quads but using my glutes. It's sort of hard to explain, but I can just sort of do it.
Trying to give the viewers some takeaway here.
Just like when you're it's not even really on your heels. It's just sort of where as you're planting off and driving off the pole, you're getting that ball of the foot to push like off that sort of straight leg. So you're getting that back like from the leg that's at the back, just driving up. So you're switching on your glute. If that makes sense.
Oh yeah, clear as mud.
Yeah.
Clear as Moab mud.
Yeah. But then. Yeah, so then when we let Monticello, it's on paper, it's a 1,000-meter descent, but...
And you're at altitude at this point, too, because you've climbed up into altitude.
Yeah, you're I think at that stage you were about 2.8, and then you come back down to about, actually you were 3,000 meters. Yeah, so we're about 3,000 meters because you come down to about 2,000 meters. And on paper, you're basically switchbacking down and around. And I don't know how many switchbacks we did. Must have been like 13 switchbacks, and it's the same trail. It was like deja vu every corner, because you'd go around to the right, you'd go down,
and it's all like aspen trees and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. But that, because it was pissing down with rain, it was just so muddy and clay. And then you're trying to look at the ground, and it just looks like a rock, but then it's mud and clay, and we lost a lot of time in that section. Like my pacer, Brooklyn, they were shocked that a 17-year-old was pacing this race, and he had me for that 20K section or 28K section, and he was running with rocks in his feet, in his shoes. He had actually had holes in his socks from all the rocks that were stuck on the bottom of his feet, and he didn't say a word, just kept pushing through. So that's a credit to him that he didn't let anything. He was just more focused on getting me as quick as I could through that section. And like he was sliding, like he was surfing on the mud, and I'm like, my legs don't do that. So I was like slipping over all the time and trying to kick like kick all the clay off your feet. But once we got onto the road, then that was like, I think it was 5K to the next aid station. But that section was so slow, and hearing I think George, who got third, and another guy, I can't remember who it was, but they had some bad falls and bad slipping in that section. But I think Killian had just missed the rain, so I think he went through that section a lot faster because it wasn't as muddy. But that's just part of it.
Yeah. So you were sort of like just running your own race,
Yeah.
doing
Yep.
your own thing,
Mhm.
managing your own effort. Was there a point whenever you even just forgot about what was in front of you? Like, or was there, and kind of counter to that, third place wasn't that far behind.
No.
Like, I think it finished up, Killian was 10 hours in front,
Yeah. Yep.
which was a huge amount,
Yeah.
but it's a type of gap that easily grows at the end,
Yeah.
especially if you're starting to think about what's
I think
behind.
that sort of, that did sort of happen. When after going through that section where I'd from Dry Valley to the Needles to Road 46, where I was saying before about hallucinating, that's pretty much straightforward. Like we got through, leaving Road 46, and that's when Ben took over again. But again, he was very good at motivating me and pushing me through. He said, "Okay, you've got." We got to Pole Canyon, and so from Road 46, you go. I think it was like 2,200 meters up to 3,000 meters again, and then you drop back down again, and then you go back up to Geyser Pass, which is 3,200 meters above sea level. And that whole section, well, we obviously knew how far third and fourth, but I had in that probably 60, 50K section, I'd got from 4 miles to nearly 14 miles ahead of third place when we got to Geyser Pass. But that whole section, to get the most out of me, he was giving me little updates. He was like, because they're all from Colorado, etc. He goes, they all live 3,000 meters above sea level. They're going to be running like sea level, so this is where you're going to drop time. I was prepared, and mentally he was preparing me to lose time, but that was what motivated me, and that's what pushed me. And we got through that section, and we actually, after he stopped pacing at Geyser Pass, he looked at the time, and George, who got third, he was the only person that was faster than me in that 50, 60K section. I was even half an hour quicker than Killian in that section. But so that was where the focus wasn't. That he sort of kept me in marks, but by the time we got to Geyser Pass, I wasn't even thinking about Killian. I was thinking about holding my lead and getting to that next station. And that's when we got to Geyser Pass, and I was tired. I think it was about 8 o'clock at night.
Geyser Pass is how many Ks in or miles?
That's about 200 miles. So you pretty much got 40 miles left.
Whenever it's like there's 40 miles left, or probably 40 something miles left,
Yeah.
it's probably got to feel like it's nearly over.
Yeah.
We're nearly done here.
Yeah, it did. It felt like I knew, like, to leave Road 46 to get to Geyser Pass, that was the hardest part of the race. To get through that, felt like, because on paper from Geyser Pass, it's almost downhill. So once Mitch had taken back over again pacing, and it's a lot of road. Like, we're going up. You're still going up. You still go up probably another 200-300 meters. About 200-300 meters up, and it was snow again, and there was the road was covered in ice. So it's like, it was like
you got a real good year.
Yeah. So we'd already doing that doing up to Geyser Pass, and all the way we were just running in snow, which was like something that I've never really experienced. It was just a beautiful part of the rate of the course, but being able to run in snow was cool. But now it made sense to why that night before, when I was shutting down, was because I was so cold. Now it makes sense why. And I was looking at one section climbing up, and I'm like, it doesn't even look like snow. It looks like someone's put like a tent over the mountain. But yeah, we left that 20, I think it was 26K to Porcupine Rim, and we pretty much ran a good probably 70% of that. So once we sort of did the climbing, then it was sort of flat road, just a lot of sort of slightly downhill. We're running a lot, and it was just smooth, flat road. So we're running all of that. And then we got to Porcupine Rim, and that's when I was like, I was 14 miles ahead of third place. I was tired though, but I didn't want to sleep because we had 28k to go, the race, 28k. So I'm like, just push through, try and push through. We'll finish pretty much on sunrise, and then that'll be it. The worst thing, I think the lady at the aid station said to me, it's downhill, all runnable, 20k, and then you got 8k of road. And so we've run out of that aid station. I can pretty much every aid station I was in and out as quick as I could, just as much to change my models over, and that was it. But we hit this rock section, and it was just jagged rock, and didn't even feel like you were going downhill, sort of up and down. And we got on there after about a k on it. I smashed underneath my foot on like a sharp rock. I felt like I ripped the ball of my foot open, and then I was like, oh, fuck, I've got 20k of this. How am I going to handle this? And that's when I started to get really tired. And then we had about 18. From 18k to 15k to go is like a blur. Like that's when the panic stations were on, because my crew were back at our accommodation, pacing back and forth, looking at the tracker, going, he's not moving, what's going on? And they're we had no Mitch, my pace, had no reception, so he's like putting music on, trying to play music to wake me up. But I'd take like 5 steps, and then I'd sort of come to, and I'm facing the wrong direction on the trail. So I was just like a zombie for 3Ks, which I don't even know how long it was. But we got to about 15, 16k to go, and I finally had reception. And by that stage, my crew had driven down to the road and were waiting for us, and were ringing to get reception. And they rang Mitch, and I just remember sort of hearing my wife on the phone yelling at Mitch, saying, "You got to wake him up. You got to get him going." And then my ears sort of pricked up, and then I hear Ben yelling at the phone, saying, because it's on loudspeaker, he's got 4 miles, he's third place, he's got to run, you got to run everything. George is coming fast, you got to push him. And then I just sort of heard third place was 4 miles behind, and that's when I just clicked. I took off past Mitch, not running that fast, but running as fast as I could. And I'm running down the hill on these rocks. My feet were killing me, and I'm just like, why wasn't I pushing this before? And I said to Mitch, why didn't you wake me up? And he's like, I was trying to wake you up.
Poor Mitch.
And yeah, I was having a go at him, and not really having a go, but I'm like, why weren't we doing this before? And I just couldn't believe how much I'd switched off, just being so tired. And then we had 15k to go. So, and then because the lady had said it was 8k of road, we thought, okay, we've got like 3k, or no, we've got 8k of this trail before we hit the road, but it ended up being 10k of this trail. So I basically hadn't had anything to drink. I had still had 2 bottles of Tailwind in my back, but I'd basically drunk the front 2 bottles that I had and my handheld. And I'm like, Mitch is like, you need some Tailwind? I'm like, just get me to the road. And I'm just gritting my teeth, just pushing as hard as I could. And then I could see, it just felt like it went forever, because you like, when do we come down? You can see the road right down the bottom, you can hear the cars, but you're just like, when this is where you're sort of picturing YouTube and seeing the videos of it and waiting for this section. And Mitch did an awesome job. I'm like, we're trying to find the line, because everything looks like water, looks like mud. And then we eventually then hit the road with 5k to go. I was too scared to look behind me. I couldn't see any lights, so I knew he wasn't that close. But as far as I knew, I just needed to push as hard as I could. And we got to the road, and my crew were there, and obviously not just spectating. And they're yelling at Mitch, going, "You've got to push him, you've got to push him." And Mitch, I could hear Mitch saying, "You're killing him." And I'm like, I don't care. And
kill me.
My wife I could hear my wife yelling, if he wants to kill himself, it's up to him. He's got to finish. And I could hear, and Ben's yelling, going, "Ben, it's Coast to Cozzy all over again." Because at the finish of Coast to Cozzy, I sprinted the last 5. I was running like 4-minute Ks for the last 5Ks to win the race. So I knew.
To defend or to take?
No, to defend.
Okay. Running scared?
Second place, I looked over my shoulder, and second place was like 100 meters behind me. And then I just took off that last 5K to win the race. But so that was in my head. And again, Ben knew what to fire me up for. So he was like, and I'm just like, I had my jumper on, had gloves on. I was getting, at that stage, the sun had just come up and I was just running scared for that. So I'm like just running. Mitch was quite worried. Mitch isn't as competitive as Ben is or as I am. So it was a completely different experience for him to see that, because like he's like, oh, I like seeing this earlier, thinking I was going to die on the trail, and he was like,
He was more worried and concerned for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Where my wife and Ben and knew.
They were like, you can hurt later
Yes,
on.
exactly.
Right now, you got to finish.
Exactly. They knew how bad I wanted it and how bad I wanted to finish second. So they were just yelling at me. And then eventually we got to about, and I'm like yelling at Mitch, going, "Can you see anything behind?" He's like, "No, I can't see anything." But every time I'd ask, and I'd say no, I'd still push faster. So I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And then they're like, "There's this," he goes, "There's water ahead. You got to," and then Ben's like, "There's water ahead. You can just run through it." And it's like running through this water that's like almost waist deep on me. And then eventually, yeah, got to about 2K, and I just kept pushing. I was like making all these weird grunting noises. I think the night before had this feeling like I was getting sick, like I had like a bit of congestion in the back of my nose. I had a bit of a headache, and I'd been pushing that across. But then as soon as I started like really exerting myself and pushing myself, I was coughing and splattering and moaning and swearing and making all these weird noises. Just, I don't think I've ever hurt more in my whole life. Just trying to push as hard as I could. And I was pretty much ran that last sort of 5K at about 5-minute pace, trying to just. But I think I wouldn't change the finish, because I got everything out I wanted that race. I really wanted to made sure I pushed everything and got everything out of my system and gave it the whole effort. So can't complain about that. But it was good after we got about a mile out, and that's when the crew could sort of run with you. And I got a mile out, and I just kept pushing and pushing, and then finally got to the finish line. And I think George knew that he was gaining on me, obviously, with his crew and had updates, but he had pushed that middle section from Porcupine Rim to, I don't know, 10K out or something like that, and he said he blew up really bad afterward, just trying to push.
Once he realised that, and then, I'm probably not going to get it, then it starts to...
Yeah. So I still finished like nearly an hour ahead of him in the end, but for that like sort of 15K to 5K out, I was just running for my dear life, which held on, and it all was worthwhile. But it was just another challenge in the race.
Also, a little bit of the, like, as amazing as the volunteers are, and these races would be nothing without them.
Yep.
But we all know never to listen to their advice or knowledge of the course. You know, almost there, just over the hill, all downhill from here. All things you don't want to hear, but at that moment, you were receptive to it.
Yeah, it was, and that was the worst thing I could have listened to. And but then I think just and having Mitch, was like, all right, we're just got it this little bit. It's all downhill, and then just everything just sort of shut down. Just the 2 20-minute naps I had during the 68 hours just sort of all caught up on me, and I just fell apart. But luckily enough, I came back to life.
Just thinking back throughout the course, you know, whenever you finish a race and you're looking down through your splits, and you see, you can nearly see how long you've held a range, and then when the range changes, whenever there was a flat runnable section, what sort of paces were you able to actually run at?
That's between 6:30 and 7-minute pace. Especially that section with Tristan. I think Ben had said to Tristan, this next marathon, you need to hold under 8-minute pace. And then we're running along, and I'm looking at my watch. I felt like I was running 5-minute pace, and I'm looking
as you do.
Yeah, I'm looking at my watch, and it's like 6:30, and then I'm like, oh, this is probably going to be a bit too. So we sort of settled to about 7 minutes. So anything sort of that flat runnable was anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30 minute pace.
And are you adjusting the pace, as in you're just running slower to get it to 7, or are you doing 6:30s and some walking?
No, I was pretty much keeping it constant. But then when I was sort of whenever we sort of get to, I'd run the whole section that was flat, or slightly downhill, and then we'd get to a bit of a rise. Then I'd go into a hike and get the poles out and start using the poles. There were some sections that I was, when I got tired, I was running like 400 meters, hiking 200 meters, running 400 meters. There was some sections like that, but then I think it was Tristan at the time said, you're wasting too much time looking at your watch. Let's run to this telegraph pole, run to this tree. But then by the time,
like it.
yeah, but by the time I got to the tree, I'd forget what tree it was. So I'm like, I'd just keep going. Yeah, there was those sort of things in the race, but constant. I think my paces were about, I'd say 7 minutes.
We never train at that pace.
No,
Ever.
no.
And whenever we talk about training for ultra trail, we say to, we hear from coaches, we say and we do, you got to practice the hiking.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is important, but we're not practicing the 7 minute Ks.
No.
Like we were chatting before the record starting, and I was pacing a couple of mutual friends on Saturday, and I was running like 6:30.
Yeah.
But I was actually getting tired doing it because it's like the monotony of it.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
But like I don't think I've ever ran 6:30 unless it was part of a race, probably.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is like there's a disconnect in the training and the racing.
Yeah.
And do you think they would adjust any training going forward? Like, do you think maybe you should be going out and doing those 60 Ks at a 7 minute K?
Yeah.
Because it's a different movement pattern.
I think so. I think, it is. I think I do this every time. I say, I've got to do more training with the poles. And I sort of never really do. And then I'm at the gym and I'm doing, like, I get on the ski erg and practice using the poles on the ski erg and
that
stuff
might be enough, I think.
It's
a movement pattern.
Yeah, exactly. So I do that. But I think if you look at time, like if I had more time to train, I would add more hiking into that block and working at that 7-8 minute pace and just going up and down hills. I would probably add that in. But again, I think that sort of looking at more about what you're going to get more bang for your buck in the overall training. But I think, definitely looking at another 200-mile race, I would probably add in a little bit more hiking. But you're definitely, because it's different movement patterns, different muscles, and that's where else we're talking about glutes before, about switching on the glutes, that sort of thing.
We still don't know how to switch on our glutes.
Yes, no.
We'll leave it as a mystery.
No, that's it.
Comment below if you know.
Yeah.
We're at the finish.
Yeah.
You're on the bike path.
Mm-hmm.
You're about to cross the line, finish in second place. How does it feel?
I was amazed, like just shocked, and just that sense of relief and the achievement. Like I just crossed the line. I was just on my hands and knees, leaning over. I saw my wife. She came over and we just hugged, and I was like, we did it. And to win the race was always going to be a massive stretch, and Mitch was always having a bit of a joke because we're gonna ruin Killian's party and break that up. But he's such a great runner, and the year that he had is absolutely amazing. So I went over to podium and to achieve it, and I was speaking to Killian's dad at the end of the race, and he's like, "So you live at sea level? You only arrived on Tuesday, and it's your first 200 mile." And they were just like, I can't believe you pulled that off. And same as Killian, he was like, he had 3 or 4 DNFs before he actually started winning.
Yeah, he's even at a young age, very experienced.
And just that accomplishment and that just the fulfillment of you set a goal and you basically been focusing on this since February to do it, but also to have the team behind me and have them to experience it with me as well. It was just a race of a lifetime.
Whenever you cross the finish line in anything, not just a 200 mile, like a 200, 240 miler, it's just got to be exacerbated, the whole experience. But the emotions just hit you. Yeah. Was it emotional?
Not quite at the race. I'd done the, picked my buckle, had the did the little race interview and stuff like that. And I was still, I don't think it had hit me. And then we got back. I had a 2-hour nap, and then I got the team, make sure the teammate only woke me, because I think we got back by about 8 o'clock in the morning. And so I got the team to wake me up, but after a 2-hour nap, I had a shower. Oh, I know, I had a shower before.
Oh,
I did have a shower.
you need the shower before you go to bed.
I was worried about jumping in the shower because that first day the chafe was terrible, but it wasn't that bad actually. But so I had the shower, I had a 2-hour nap, and then got dressed, and then we're like, all right, let's go hit the town. And just before that, because
were you like this on the pint?
No, I wasn't actually. I didn't end up getting back to sleep till like 1 o'clock that morning, because we went down and watched David Goggins finished, and my mates were obsessed with David, so they actually ran the last sort of mile with him into the finish, and actually met his wife. His wife was very nice. She came over and had a chat with me, congratulated me, and she actually was at one of the aid stations that helped me fill my bottles up and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I got emotional just before we went out to go for lunch. I went to record a little video to say thank you for everyone that's commented and followed on. I did the first one just briefly, just on like to the open gram, and then I did a little private message to my coaching business and all of my friends and that are family that have been following along the race, and that's when it hit me, and I got halfway through like just saying thank you, and I just started crying, and that's when it sort of just that knowing that it's not just me. There was a whole community of people behind me, helping me throughout this build, or have always helped me in the races, that have always supported me with the coaching business, just work, family, and it just really hit me of how important the people that you surround yourself with. It's not just you that doing it; it's everyone's there for that whole ride.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's time we wrapped it up. We've gone through this journey with you, the highs and lows, the mud, the chafe, the glute activation. Are you thinking ahead of what's next?
Yeah, I've had that question a few times. Like, everyone's well, the next day the whole team are going, so we coming back next year, and the guy that had the accommodation where we stayed at, he was amazing. He had his he was telling everybody that checked in that I was doing this race and I got second, and his whole family from the East Coast were tracking and stuff like that. But
it's one of the amazing things about America. Like I find the whole experience is so friendly and welcoming.
And then just at the finish line talking to a few people that people at Destination Trail and a few other people that were just drove an hour or 2 hours down to the finish line, and they were tracking the race, and they're like coming over and getting photos with me saying, oh, we've been following you, it's really nice to meet you, and la da da da. And they're like, oh, are you going to come back and do the Triple Crown? Are you going to come and try one of the other 200 milers? And I think I would love to. I think that to do Moab, but just financially, that's the thing. Like, if I have help and support, I definitely think I can improve. Definitely would be interested at just trying a different race, whether it be Cocodona, Mammoth. I do, as I was mentioning before, I do think Moab does suit my strengths. Maybe Bigfoot, but definitely would want to look at doing another race in the US. But again, that just have to look at financials and stuff like that. And if I try and get some help and support, then that'll make it a lot easier, obviously. But there is the Delirious West in Western Australia in April. That's a 200 mile, so might look at that. Defend my title at Coast to Cozzy next year, maybe. But yeah, if it all works out, if I can get support, I think definitely head back over to the US for another crack. Don't know, and but we'll see.
Great. Well, I think we'll leave it at that. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming in. It's been great to recount the adventure with you, and whenever you get recovered, we'll get out for a couple of runs.
Yeah, definitely. No, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.